My task this afternoon is to take us through instruments for effective debt management, the DSA, MTDS, and annual borrowing plans. The outline of my presentation is as shown on the screen. We are going to look at objective and expected learning outcomes, purpose for effective public debt management, debt sustainability analysis, the DSA, MTDS, annual borrowing plans, and we'll draw a conclusion. Okay. What is the objective of this presentation? We want participants to understand and be able to deploy at basic level, instruments for managing debt effectively. That is the DSA, MTDS, and annual borrowing plan. Basic is put in capitals and is bolded there because what you need as debt manager, you should be able to even understand the basic meaning of these tools. We found out that in most debt offices, the debt managers, they don't really understand these tools. And when you gather them for DSA exercise, we see long progression, Excel sheet, and what have you. What does it mean? You have to start grappling and trying to make meaning to it. And at the end of the presentation, we are going to see that there is a strong relationship between these three components. And the three components are used to monitor and progress from one stage to the other. The MTDS is derived from DSA, the annual borrowing plan derived from MTDS, and they are linked together. So we'll look at it as we progress. This is not friendly. Okay. What are the purposes for effective public debt management? A lot has been said since yesterday up to this morning, but the purpose of having an effective public debt management is for you to be able to meet the financing needs of your government, service debt obligations at lowest possible cost. Lowest possible cost is very important because it's not just you servicing the debt. You cannot be servicing debt at high level and you say you are doing effective debt management. And this has to be consistent with a prudent degree of risk. Another purpose is to ensure that the level and growth of debt are kept sustainable. The level of debt of government and the growth, the rate at which government accumulates debt should be at a sustainable level. Sustainable, what does it mean to be sustainable? We are going to look at it as we progress. And for decision makers to be aware of the cost and risk associated with the debt portfolio. It is also a means of highlighting application of poorly structured public debt portfolio. When you say a public debt portfolio is poorly structured, it means that the mixture of, say, for external to domestic is not in the right mix, taking into consideration the performances and the condition of the country, variable interest rate versus fixed interest rate, they are not in the same in the right mix. And again, the purpose of effective public debt management is to be able to have a functional and stable domestic debt market. Because if the debt management of any country is poor, that is, it's not well managed, it's not effective, it's not efficient, you will not be able to go to the market, even your domestic market. Then, in trying to achieve these purposes, among others, there are so many other ones that are not listed here. public debt management tools have to be deployed. So you need a tool to be able to go to where you want to go, to be able to do what you want to do. This tool, in terms of effective public management, when we're looking at the DSA, MTDS, and annual borrowing. We are taking it one by one. Debt sustainability analysis, that is the DSA. What does it mean? The DSA is a technical exercise undertaken by the Debt Office in collaboration with the Central Bank, Ministry of Finance, the Treasury, Budget Office of Accountant General of the Federation, as the case may be. It's not an exercise that is carried out only by the Debt Office, but the Debt Office is the driver of this exercise. So if you talk of debt sustainability, it means the ability of a country to service all its current and future debt obligations and still meet up with other needs without undue adjustment. That is, going for rescheduling and refinancing and other means. Simply put, as we are here now, many of us, we are the heads of our family. Some of us are the breadwinners. If you take a loan from a bank and you have to pay the loan on a monthly basis based on your salary, if you're able to pay the loan and still put food on the table, it means the loan you have taken is sustainable. You are not only paying, you are able to do other things. That's what is based for governments too. But if you take a loan from the bank, and because you don't want to be declared bankrupt, you are paying your loans as at when due, but no food on the table. You cannot provide for your family, and all your money is just used to pay the loans. It means the debt you have taken, the loan you have taken from the bank, it is unsustainable. So it is for the sovereign too. So for DSA, it relates debt burden to output and under 3 assumptions. I want us to, those of us in the debt office, middle office, I want us to be very clear. We are looking at 3 scenarios. There is what we call baseline, and there you have optimistic and pessimistic. Based on my experience working with the DMO, we started DSA in the DMO Nigeria 2005, about 20 years ago. The first, second DSA, then I was a middle office officer in the back office. When I look at the long sheet that is Excel sheet, yellow areas, some other areas are white, different coloration. I find it difficult to really understand which one is baseline. What are they talking about baseline? What are they talking about optimistic and pessimistic? Over time, as I kept on going to the DSA and I was getting more exposure, I understood. But we don't have to go through the long haul. So what we are going to do now is try to make it as practical as is possible. Baseline scenario, it means taking into consideration that where you are now, where your debt portfolio in terms of your debt service, payment of principal and interest and other charges, the debt stock. Baseline scenario means maintaining status quo, maintaining where you are. Whether it's good or bad, maintaining where you are is the baseline scenario in terms of data input that will go into the DSA template. When you talk of optimistic, as the word implies, it is optimistic. We are hoping that things will change, the debt level will come down, you have enough revenue to pay your debt, and that the economy will boom, and that there won't be external shock from both internal and outside your environment. It means that we are looking that things are going to be good. So that scenario is what is called optimistic. Pessimistic, as the name also implies, It's a scenario where you are thinking that the debt level will rise, exchange rate and interest rates are not behaving well. They are going up, fluctuating. You can't even ascertain where it is. Then a lot of things are happening in the economy that you will not be able to talk, like what happened with COVID-19. And some of our countries, we have insurgencies, that is Boko Haram issue and other issues. Should we assume that such a thing could happen? It means we are painting a worst-case scenario. Worst-case scenario is what is referred to as the pessimistic scenario. These are the three scenarios that you are going to run your DSA through. So it's good for us to understand. So what does the DSA do? What does it do? It feeds into the policy decision of government. It helps to determine borrowing limit. We'll be talking about borrowing limit. If you do a DSA that is analyzing your present position to be able to pay and future position to pay and be able to carry out your other activities without going for restructuring. If you look at it and you see where you are, you will be able to gauge if you have any borrowing limit, depending on the law that is set in your country. In Nigeria, I think the debt to deficit ratio was put at 3%, and in from about 2 or 3 years ago now, we've exceeded that limit one way or the other, but we don't want to agree that we have exceeded the limit. So everybody has their own limit, but through the DSA, you'll be able to determine your limit. So the DSA provides input into MTF and budgeting process. That is the essence of the DSA. So what does DSA do? It emphasizes your exposures, and this has to be reviewed annually. It is recommended for you to carry out annual DSA. I don't know how many countries are doing that. Nigeria, since 2005, like I told you, we started conducting our DSA, and it's been on till date, 20 years after that. How many of us conduct our DSA annually? Let me see your hand up. Sierra Leone is my country. Okay, good. Madagascar, we are the other room yesterday. Somalia, the Gambia, where are they? Yeah, good. So a lot of us, we conduct our DSA annually. But the point is that the middle officers in our offices, do they understand this concept of the DSA? So we have to make it as practical as possible so that they'll be able to understand what we are doing and get carried along, because we are not going to stay in the system forever. Like for me, I retired from the DMO after attaining a good age of 60 years, and I'm no more there. So whatever we pass on to our junior ones is what they are able to implement and build upon to even surpass what we've done. What are the objectives of debt sustainability analysis? You have to have your objective. What do you want to achieve when you are going to carry out a DSA? One of the common objectives that forms a basis for recommendation for borrowing. It takes account into the ability of a debt to pay and a country to repay its debt. We have been talking about it since. It's also an avenue to detect potential risks and to also provide solutions to those risks. It helps to guide government in these borrowing decisions. It advises on borrowing limits, we've mentioned it, and financing options. Provides input into the national budget and the MTF. There are 2 DSA frameworks. Like I said, we are going to make it as practical and simple as possible. There is low-income country debt sustainability framework developed by the IMF, World Bank, And the other one is the MAC SRDF. You see, the second one is grayed out because it does not concern us. As we are here now, all of us are within the low income group. So we are not, that one does not concern us. We are going to look at the first one. As I said, it is developed by World Bank and IMF. What does it do? It assesses the country's ability to finance its other programs and also be able to pay its debt obligation. It is advisable that it should be conducted regularly, annually, as I said before. What is the basis? What are the inputs into the DSA template? You have to project your debt burden over the next 10 years, meaning that those of us in the back office, we provide this data to the DSA teams. The system that we are using, CSRMS or Meridian or DEMFAS, has the ability to project debt into the future. So that projection for 10 years, you extract it, and that's what you are going to use. And based on this, you are going to have your baseline scenario, and also you are going to have stress test scenarios. The second aspect of it is that the risk of external and overall public debt distress is going to be measured using this same template based on what we call debt burden threshold. Many of us will know what is debt burden threshold, but like I used to say, our middle officers, are they carried along? Do they understand? So I've already talked about baseline scenarios. And as we are looking at your debt in the future, you are also looking at your debt historical. So how far have you gone for the past 10 years? If you have up to past 10 years data. When we started in DMO in 2005, we didn't have accurate data dating back to 10 years. So we made do with what was available. Same for you. If you don't have data dating back to 10 years, you take what is available, but definitely we are going to have projection over the next 10 years or 20 years, because the system is going to project for you if you are using a debt management software. At this point, how many of us are using debt management software? Either it's a Commonwealth Meridian, CSRMS, or DIMFAS. So from this side, hands up. Thank you. That is Liberia. My people in front, Republic of, I can't see your name. Pardon, please. Burkina Faso. I know you are using a debt management software. Why don't you raise up your hand? Oh, okay, or the debt people are not here. Okay. Yes, thank you. Where is my country? Sierra Leone and Madagascar. And Somalia. Okay. Thank you. So most of us, we are using debt management software. So the essence of it is that the software has the ability to project into the future for you, both debt stock and debt service that you require for the DSA. So it's not only debt projection that is required, you also need projection in terms of the physical, monetary, and other external sector identities. So in this regard, DSA is not carried out only by the debt office. It is carried out, as I said before, in collaboration with the central bank, the Treasury, Minister of Finance, Bureau for Statistics in case of Nigeria, all the agencies in your jurisdiction that has to do with macro data. You need to collaborate with them. So the basic structure of this template is that it is noted that different countries have different debt carrying capacity. As we are here now, I think all of us, we have different debt carrying capacity. The debt that Nigeria will carry and it will not go down, if Sierra Leone carries it, it becomes a problem. The ones Sierra Leone will carry and will not go down maybe if Madagascar carries it, it becomes a problem. So we all have different debt carrying capacity. And even as we are as human beings, we have different capacity to be able to do one thing or the other. So based on that, the LIC DSF categorized countries as using, we call it composite indicator. I don't want to go into that. That's another subject entirely. But an indicator is used to classify your country into strong, medium, and weak performer. Again, we have to raise up our hand. Any country that's within that is classified as a strong performer here? Any strong performer? No, even Nigeria, we're not a strong performer. Medium performer. Medium. Yes, your country, please. Sierra Leone. Okay, the classification by IMF, it's not our self-classification. If it's led by me, I will classify myself as strong. So, okay, so you have a medium performer in Sierra Leone. What of weak? Weak performer. So if you don't belong here, it means you belong here. So all of us that did not raise our hand, when I said strong, you did not say anything. When I said medium, it means you are all weak. Okay, so that's what it means anyway, but it's just for us to understand. So in terms of debt carrying capacity, we have strong, the countries that are strong, we have countries that are medium, and we have countries that are weak. And we have also different indicative debt burden threshold that are used for this thing. Now, I want us to look at the debt burden indicators. You cannot talk of DSA without talking about debt burden indicators, because that's the benchmark. That is what shows whether you are sustainable or not sustainable. These parameters are divided into two: solvency and liquidity ratios. Getting here again, I want to draw on my personal experience. For those of us that are economists and financial, maybe we read banking and finance and other things, it may be easy for you when they talk about solvency, liquidity ratios. But most people in the debt office, we don't all have the same background. We come from different backgrounds to do different things. When you talk of solvency, liquidity ratio, most of the time we mix them up. A practical way of understanding is that what I tell my staff, anything that has to do with solvency is debt stock related. All debt stock related ratios are solvency ratios. Then when you talk of liquidity ratio, debt service related ratios are liquidity ratios. Is it understood? That is the simplest way. Some of us here may understand, but there are some people here that don't understand, that needs to take home this simple explanation. Debt stock related ratios are solvency ratio. Debt service related ratios are liquidity ratios. Based on that, what does solvency ratio do? It measures the ability of the sovereign to generate enough resources to pay outstanding debt. We have debt to GDP. So debt to GDP is an example of solvency ratio. It compares total debt to gross domestic product. Debt to export compares stock of debt to export. Debt to revenue measures stock of debt to revenue to repay the debt. Liquidity ratios, we've already said it. Anything that has to do with debt service, external debt service, total debt service, related to any other thing is a liquidity ratio. But internationally, what we have is external debt service to export. And we have external debt service to revenue. These are the liquidity ratios. The first one measures ability of a country to generate enough forex to be able to service its debt. The other one measures the ability of a country to be able to have enough revenue to service its debt. Oh. Sorry, it wanted to run away. So here, we are, on the screen is a dead body threshold and benchmark under the LIC DSF as published by IMF on its website. Now, we have weak, medium, and strong. And from the conversation we had before now, we know that many of us are in that category of weak. Only one or two are in the category of medium. Nobody in the category of strong. So it means we should focus on the parameters of the weak. Weak in terms of, not in terms of are you able to fight or anything, but in terms of your debt carrying capacity. So the PV of external debt as a percentage of GDP for weak country is 30%. That is the benchmark. Now, it brings me to another word, benchmark, threshold. All of us may know it, but a few people may not still understand what it means by benchmark. When you talk of a benchmark or debt threshold, it means that percentage that you cannot go above. If you go above it, it means you have breached, you have broken your sustainability level. It's understood. So threshold and benchmark, you are not supposed to go above. So for weak country, the PV of your external debt to GDP should not be above 30%. To export, not above 140. If it is 140.00001, it means you have breached. So there is no going back. It has to be either it is 140 or below 140. For external debt service to export is 10, to revenue 14. Then the PV of total debt means your domestic and external debt, and all the debt, like contingent liability, everything put together, if you are measuring it, should not be more than 35%. If it's more than 35%, it means you have breached. As debt officers, to be practical and to be able to advise our principals, these ratios, we should have it at the tip of our fingertip. We should have it, we should know it. If you look at any your debt, a document from your debt office, and it's showing that external debt as a percentage of GDP is at 25 or at 28, don't be too comfortable and be laughing that we are below threshold. We are below threshold, but we are very close to the benchmark. So it means we have to watch what we are doing in terms of, we are going to look at MTDS later, in terms of your strategy. So those are for the medium, I think the figures are there. It does not concern many of us, but concerns Sierra Leone, 40, 180, 15. So at this point, let me call on number one, the Gambia. What is your debt to GDP, total debt to GDP as at 2024? The Gambia. Please, can somebody give him? Pardon? 74.7. So 74.7. We can see from here that they've already breached, isn't it? My country, Sierra Leone, where are you? Pardon? 39.5. You have also breached that one. That is for total debt. Madagascar? Madagascar, where are you? That's my other country. Where are they hiding? I'm not hiding, so better bring your face out. See them there? Yes.
Madagascar, 40.
40%. 40%. Okay. Eritrea. All of us, we have agreed that most of the countries here fall within the category of weak. And these are the benchmarks set by IMF World Bank. So I'm now asking some of us to let us know what your debt to GDP is, total debt to GDP, as at end 2024. Total debt to GDP as at end 2024. The Gambia told us that they're at 74.7%. Then Sierra Leone said they're at 40. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, good.
For Sierra Leone, our debt carrying capacity is medium.
Good, okay.
And for medium, the threshold is 55.
Okay,
so we are
good.
now at 39.5.
Okay, that's good. So for medium, because of their own debt classification, they are at 39.5, which is far below. Nigeria, too, is classified as medium. As at end of 2025, we are at 53.4. So we are getting close to that this thing. So we have to start watching. Even though it has been said here severally that GDP does not pay the debt. So you cannot be too comfortable that my debt to GDP is below threshold. No problem, I can continue. What is your debt service to revenue? That is the real question. And the debt service to revenue of some of us, Nigeria inclusive, is the figure I don't want to mention here. So we are getting too close if we have not breached. Okay, I think we are okay. It's just for us to understand the context of what I'm saying. So what are the risk signals? After looking at our performance, whether we are weak, we are not weak, the next thing to look at is the risk signal. If you are considered to be at low level of risk, if at the baseline scenario, no breach, meaning that you will not surpass those figures. At the shock scenario, that is the stress scenario, you did not surpass those indicators. You are considered moderate if at the baseline you are still within the threshold, but when you apply shock, you now breach even one. Breaching one of those benchmark, debt to export, debt to GDP, debt service to revenue, external debt service to export. Anyone, if you breach one of them at the shock scenario, it means you are at moderate risk. High risk is when you breach one and the other one. So quickly, let's look at the users of a DSA report, the IMF, World Bank, the creditors and borrowers. Because of time, I need to speed up. Okay. So we're going to look at the next tool, MTDS. I'll take it very snappy. What is the MTDS about? The DSA is talking about your ability to pay and do other things. MTDS is talking about your portfolio mix, the mixture of external debt to domestic, fixed versus variable rates, your currency composition, short-term, long-term, and the rest of them. Everything is to ensure there is a debt sustainability. What are the benefits of MTDS? We'll talk about, let me leave it because of time. I want to quickly talk about the formulation of MTDS because it's very important for us to know. And since we have come here, it's an opportunity. If you look at normally the MTDS analytical tool is what is used. It's developed by the World Bank, IMF again. The steps involved are quite numerous, about 7 steps or so. If you look at the guidance note, the steps are many. But for practical purpose and for us as debt managers, I want to quickly go through if you want to do an MTDS without going through the steps based on my own experience. The first thing is that we are looking at strategies to borrow in terms of so that you can obtain a good portfolio mix at low level of debt service and also at low level of risk. The first thing that you need strategy one. Strategy one is the strategy of where you are now, where you are, your current debt portfolio. The mix Whatever it is, that is your strategy 1. You now take strategy 2. Strategy 2 is going to be what is called an alternate strategy. That strategy is a strategy where you have to now change, you tweak strategy 1. If the ratio of external debt to domestic in strategy 1 is 40 to 60, for instance, in strategy 2, you can make it 50-50 or the other way around. That's what I mean. In that same way, you also change the other variables in terms of fixed interest versus variable and the currency composition. Then you have strategy 3. Strategy 3 is going to be different from 1 and 2. It's another tweaking. You change the parameters, you get strategy 3. You can do as many strategies as you want, but normally we stop at 3 strategies or 4. So when you look at these strategies, I've already described them, is fed into the analytical tool. If you do that, the output, what will come out, it will show you the size and composition of debt and flows, cost and risk indication, redemption profile. The figures that are going to come out are going to be different for the 3 scenarios. It is now left for you as a debt manager to look at the scenario that favors, that goes in line with your debt sustainability analysis and choose one. Anyone you choose, you have to make recommendation to your executives, and it has to be approved and published before you start implementing. That's just in a nutshell what I can say about. So I'll leave that one. Okay, no. It's good for us to look at this. For Nigeria, again, we have our, this is MTDS 2020-2023. The current one of 2024-2026 is already completed but not yet published, so I can't use it here. So those are what is very important in MTDS for you to set your target. Where do you want to reach? If you can quickly look at this, maybe when we go out for the breakout session, we'll talk about it. The last but not the least is annual borrowing plan. The other tool is annual borrowing plan. Because of time, again, even before I planned that, what I will do is just to take us through practical, how each one is done. For the annual borrowing plan, again, is derived from the MTDS. You use the MTDS based on where you want to go, your strategy and what have you, to draw an annual borrowing plan. It means at the beginning of the year, at the end of the year, what the country is going to borrow in 2026, for instance, you draw out the plan. In terms of the sources, that is, where are you borrowing from? External, domestic. The domestic one is going to be made up of what? Treasury bills, and sovereign bonds, and other things like that. So you draw out that plan, and this plan must be made public. And on maybe monthly basis or quarterly basis, you show you publish the plan in your, maybe if you have a website, you have any other means of communication to the public, you publish the borrowing plan so that investors can make their investing decision based on your on the annual borrowing plan. Again, if you check many countries, we don't really have annual borrowing plan. What we say we have, what we have is issuers calendar. They're not only a few countries. I think I've seen that of South Africa. I've also seen that of Kenya. Even for Nigeria, we are trying to develop a systematic annual borrowing plan here. But any amount that your government wants to borrow in the next year, as contained in the budget, when you break it down, it suffices for your annual borrowing plan. What are the components of annual borrowing plan? Anybody can do it. The annual borrowing plan, unlike the DSA and the MTDS tool, is tailor-made. You try, according to what you know about your country, about what you want, you bring it out. Where are you getting your money? Domestic, treasury bonds, treasury bills, government bonds, sovereign bonds, and the rest of them. So I have here the borrowing plan of the Republic of Kenya. You can go to the National Treasury website to look at it very well. What it contains is what are you borrowing, how much are you borrowing, and which quarter are you borrowing. So we will have time to go through this, but you can look it up. It's just the differences between, or the interrelationship between DSA, MTDS, and annual borrowing plan. In conclusion, there is a continuous relationship between these three tools. The DSA provides long-term vision. MTDS tests the medium-term strategy. The annual borrowing plan implements the MTDS. So if there is any change in any of the parameters, you have the way with that to adjust, to review. For Nigeria, during the pandemic, during the pandemic, we had to review our MTDS. We review MTDS, we reviewed the DSA, because so many fundamentals had changed. So what is important is that these three tools should be used. If you are using the three tools effectively and well, it means that your borrowing will remain prudent, transparent, and will be sustainable over time. And that is what is referred to as effective debt management. Thank you.